Hey everyone, happy Thursday. I am back. I am back with my live videos. If you missed it on Monday, I wasn't around. I made a decision to take some extra rest after the crazy weekend that we had here. So, wanted to jump in here and talk about something that's really, really important. And let me just preface this by saying, they're, of course, doing yard work outside my window. So hopefully you can't hear it. But if you do hear it, please ignore it. We're just going to keep moving forward, okay? And I want to talk about this particular topic because it has been such a massive conversation this week in my own life, in my client conversations. And I actually posted about this earlier this week, but I want to explain and take about 10 to 15 minutes to really dive into this because I think it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of hopefully stress, right? As you are creating the life that you desire. Now, before we get into this, I want to ask you if you are joining live, please say hello in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video if it resonates. And if you're watching the replay, please post replay. I would appreciate you. So here's what we're talking about. We're talking about validation, inner validation versus outer validation, right? And what is so interesting about this topic is I actually was just listening to a podcast. It was a podcast that interviews comedians, famous people, whatever. And one of the things that they were discussing, it was with Ben Stiller, and he was talking about how he very often will get sort of triggered or concerned with the critics, people who are criticizing his work, right? And how he'll make something that feels really good, but then the critics don't necessarily like it. And then it can kind of put a damper, right? Like seeking that outer validation. And what I think is so interesting about this is he is a famous, successful, right? Um, Actor, director, producer, writer, all the things. He's been in the industry for like 35 plus years or something crazy. And he still, despite how much money he has, despite whatever it is, he still has that thing, right? And what I think is so interesting about this is that we all have this thing where we are seeking this external validation for who we are, for what we are doing, for our enoughness, right? Like we want the money to be the thing that proves that we are doing the right thing. We want the business success, the book deal, the relationship, the marriage, the children, the promotion, right? The body type, whatever, to be the thing that shows us and the world that we are enough. Now, the disconnect with this is that those external things will never be enough to ultimately and truly fulfill our validation space, our void that we have, right? A validation or enoughness. It will never be enough. And it will never fulfill it in a way like it can't even touch the level of fulfillment you will have when you fill that for yourself, when you have that internal validation. And I want to say that again because this is really, really important. There is no amount of money, there is no amount of success, there is no number of book deals and record deals or, amazing happily ever after life that you create that is external from you that will ever be enough to touch even a portion of what your inner validation can do for you. Meaning, you have to, if you really and truly want to create the life that you desire, if you really and truly want to be happy, which is what I think we all want, then we have to start here. We have to start with our enoughness, how we think of and like what we believe about ourselves. How are we like being where we are with where we are and being enough in that moment with where we are. And I'm going to be honest, this is not an easy thing for me. This is not an easy thing. This is something I'm learning, right? And historically, I have been a person who has found validation in what I do. I have found validation in what I have achieved, where I have, how I've performed, what I've produced, what I've created, right? But the problem with that, two problems really. The first problem is I don't feel like I'm enough until I have that product. I don't feel like I'm enough until I do more. And the more I do, the less valid I feel, so the more I have to do. You see the cycle? So it just doesn't work. It doesn't work long term. The second problem with that is that I'm never truly fulfilled. And this isn't just me, this is everyone. I've listened to countless podcasts. I've listened to a variety of podcasts, but I often listen to podcasts with interviews, with like musicians and actors and actresses, because I'm always interested in how they think. And it's less about their career and more about their lives. And what I hear consistently is that regardless of the level of success that they have, there's still a part of them that doesn't feel like they've reached that. There's still a part of them that tells them that they aren't enough in some way. And until they or you or I, or until all of us really pour into ourselves and get into that place of learning to validate ourselves, learning to be enough, learning to cultivate that inner enoughness, that inner validation, nothing outside of us will ever touch it. It will never fill the void. It will take the pain, the sort of, first little bit of pain off of it. It will give you some temporary relief, but it will never be long lasting. Because once that external validation fills you up, then you have to have more, and you have to have more, and you have to have more, because it's related to this thing that's outside of you, right? And I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and we were talking about this, and she said that external validation is to show other people who didn't believe in me that what I wanted, what I desired, what I was reaching for finally was enough. Like, it's to prove to someone else. And even that, even the accolades from someone else will not be enough to touch what you believe to be true about you. If you already don't feel enough, if you already feel like you need that external validation isn't going to fulfill that long term. It will numb it. It will satisfy it temporarily, but it will not last. Trust me, right? So this came up recently in one of the chapters of my book that I'm writing, where I was talking about how it was really clear for me early on in my business that I wanted and needed someone else to tell me the way to go so that they could validate that I was enough. And in that case, I was looking for someone to say, okay, here is your certificate. Here is your program, here's your diploma. Here's your degree. Here is the process that you're using. And now you're enough. Now you're ready. Now you're good enough to go do that thing that you want. I wanted someone to tell me that I was good enough to do this thing that I'm doing now. And I've spent a lot of time seeking that kind of validation. But let's talk about the other forms that this takes. This often comes up when I'm working with clients who are trying to achieve something, right? They're doing it because they want to prove that they're not a failure. They want to get to some financial level in their business or financial level in their bank account, because they want to prove that they are not the same person that came from whatever lifestyle they came from, or they have turned their life around, or they want all these people who looked at them when they were growing up, or the teachers or whomever, and said, hey, you're not going to amount to anything. They're doing it so that they prove that, right? And not everyone, but a lot of people do. But it also shows up in what kinds of marriages are you staying in because other people think it's good, but you already know that it's not fulfilling and you need to do something differently, right? What about the job you're staying in that on paper looks amazing? You're making all the money, you've got profit sharing, you got really good insurance, but it's not fulfilling your soul, and your whole body is saying, I need to do something different, right? That all the stuff, the awards, cannot touch long term the amount of joy and peace that comes when we learn to be enough for ourselves, to validate ourselves. And that doesn't mean you don't seek to grow. That doesn't mean you don't seek to get better. It doesn't mean you just go, I'm as good as it gets and this is it. It's not about that. But it is knowing, believing, trusting in who you are, how you show up, and owning your value as a human being here, now, without all that extra stuff. Because with or without it, you still get to be you. And if you can validate yourself, and here's where the kicker comes in. If you can validate yourself, if you can fill yourself up, and again, this is something I am constantly working toward, and we'll talk about how you do this, right, in just a second. But this is something I'm working on all the time. But if you can fill that up, if you can be enough where you are on the journey as you're moving toward whatever it is that you want, you're going to get those other things. Maybe not in the exact way that you imagined, but they're going to come. And they're going to come easier, in a more organic and authentic way. And it's going to be joyful. It's going to be like the icing on the cake, the extra cherry on top, because you already know who you are, right? So how do we do this? Well, it's a practice, right? Like, I'm learning this, I'm practicing this, I'm working on this, I'm working and moving through this constantly. And I do this, with the people that I work with, my mentors and coaches. I do this on my own. And I can tell you that it makes such a huge difference when you do this. Okay. So how do you do it? In part, mindset is a huge part of it, right? It is understanding, how are you thinking and feeling about yourself? What are you thinking consistently? Are you questioning those thoughts that don't feel good? Are you choosing something different? Are you choosing to do things differently? Are you taking time to be with yourself and like getting into a practice of going, okay, listen, where I am is where I am, and it's okay. And I trust it. And I'm a good person. And I love myself, right? Like, validating yourself. And I'll tell you, most of us didn't learn this growing up because we're flawed human beings raising flawed human beings. So this is one of those lessons that we often have to learn on our own in terms of like past childhood. We have to learn it into adulthood, right? So the best way that I have found to do this is mindset work, is sometimes it's therapy, sometimes it's, working with someone who can see these things within me, like a coach or a mentor. But a lot of it is choosing those thoughts on a consistent basis, choosing to disconnect my self-worth, my value from the numbers, from the statistics, from the amount of money I'm making, from where I've reached. Have I hit that number? Have I hit that marker? Have I hit that goal or desire or intention, right? Like, separating that. And that's not an easy thing to do because we live in a society that tells us our value is based on those things. Your value is based on the home that you live in, the car that you drive, the amount of money in your bank account, right? That's the world that we live in. But we have to flip this. And one of the ways to do that is this amazing work that I do. And the beauty of it for me is that I get to teach it as I'm learning it. I get to teach it as I'm going through the next level of it, right? And so it gets really exciting to see myself transform, but to also see the shifts and changes that happen within my clients, the light bulbs that go off when they go, oh, I don't, that thing doesn't have to mean anything. I get to be okay. I am good and purposeful and kind and a great mom. Like I get to do that for myself, regardless of who else sees that. Okay. So that's the work. That's the work that we're here to do. That's the work that I do in a nutshell with clients, right? Helping you validate yourself, helping you develop that muscle and that practice to really create those inner shifts. When you create that, number one, it feels amazing. You are at peace. You are present. You are in the moment. Life is good. And then it just keeps getting better. And yes, you have to keep going back and, still fill your cup and still do the things that fill you up, but it just keeps getting better. So I just wanted to share this with you. It's a conversation, I have been having for myself, but with clients. It's been a big theme that has popped up over the last couple of weeks, and I think it's a big one. So I want to know your thoughts. I want to know, is this helpful? What questions do you have? And of course, if this is something that you need to work on, or you choose to work on, right? If this is something that you want support around, I'm going to include some details in the comments for you below. You can book a, consultation with me. We can chat a little bit and see if we're a good fit to work together. I'm also going to include the link to my VIP list. It is my email list. I send out a couple of emails a week just to give you some additional tips and tools to help you do exactly what we're talking about. Okay. So I have to hop off of here, but I hope this is helpful. Feel free to share this if this is helpful for you. Share it with a friend, share it with someone who, you think might be interested in hearing it, tag them, and make sure you comment below with whatever questions you have. Okay. All right, guys, I got to jump off. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will talk to you on Monday. Bye.